Okay. From 2006 to 2008, I was a Megablocks fan. I was obsessed with Pirates of the Caribbean, and Lego didn't have a license yet, so I crossed the tracks. I had so many sets. The Flying Dutchman, Danger from the Depth, Water Wheel Duel. It was my dark little secret. That's not to say I didn't give plenty of love to Lego in that time. No, 2007, I had all the Aqua Raiders sets. 2008, I got the legendary Lego Death Star. But I couldn't live in both worlds, and eventually I went fully back with the one who brung me, Lego. I have never met anyone else who liked Megablocks. Even on YouTube, I could find one content creator totally dedicated to Megablocks. Everyone else, even if they'll dip a toe into Megablocks or Connects or Lumibricks here and there, the pendulum always swings back to Lego. Which, Lego's the biggest toy company in the world. There's over 1,000 Lego stores, and for years, Lego's been known for their quality, attention to detail, and icons like the 2x4 brick or the minifig. But while Lego is no doubt the king, there are some vassals who have recently upgraded to a barony and starting to make a name for themselves. I'm talking like Lumibricks, Pantasy, Bluebrixx, upstarts, swimming in Lego's wake, offering things Lego won't or can't. Do you miss Lego Castle? Lumibricks has an entire medieval line. You wish Lego would do steampunk sets? Pantasy has you covered. If you're tired of Lego being too expensive, these alt-brick sets are half the price and almost always on sale. There are a lot of attractive alt-brick brands out there, but I made a commitment to Lego early on to have and to hold, in sickness or in health, till death do us part, and I would never break that commitment. Never. Wait, Lumibricks has a Van Gogh painting for... It's that cheap? Oh my. My name's Eric Crittenden, this is Clutch Power, and we're gonna keep this episode quiet so Lego doesn't find out. This is a show about alt-bricks. Episode 13. We cheated on Lego. In part 1, an interview with another who has been tempted by the alt-bricks, JT Sandman 45. In a bonus segment for Patreon supporters only, Jackson and I talk about his other love of Guitar Hero and the honestly very dumb covers he does. And that's not a shot at him, he said that himself. And in part 2, Jackson and I look at our alt-brick options. There's plenty of fish in the sea. It's kind of like the dating game, Lego alt-brick edition. And before we start, you better not tell Lego about this episode. They cannot find out, okay? I changed your name in my phone, and I use a different credit card when I buy Lumibricks, okay? Okay, let's have an affair. Part 1. There's always been a plan B. Quick Lego history lesson. 1949, Lego launches the first Lego brick. It's locked in by the mid-50s, and the rest is history. Pretty much immediately, companies saw what Lego did and started to copy them while being legally distinct. We had N&B blocks in Japan, Rosti in Argentina, Oxford in Korea. Everyone wanted a piece of that Lego pie. In the 60s and 70s, Lego had a patent over the stud and tube brick system we all know and love. But guess what? That sucker expired in 1978, and then things really took off. Megablocks, Tyco, Kobe, and boy, Lego really went after these companies. Tyco with a lawsuit in 1987, Kobe lawsuit in the 90s, and yes, even our beloved Megablocks.
They had the exact same blocks. The only difference was they didn't have the little Lego logo on it, right? They were trying to trademark the design of the block and trying to protect the functionality of it. the Canadian Supreme Court said, hey, you can't protect functionalities. You're trying to essentially extend your patent term of something that expired many, many years ago.
By the way, that's from episode 10 of Clutch Power, Lego versus Lepin, all about trademark and copyright. That Megablocks ruling set a precedent. As long as alt-bricks aren't calling themselves Lego, ripping off sets, or flying a little too close to that Danish sun, then you're good. Obviously, that's condensing this issue down a lot. This is not legal advice. For a lot of years, it was Lego, the kingpin, and then Megablocks, it connects way down. All those not Lego-y Legos you'd pass by at Toys R Us. But then, in the mid-2010s...
Light has always been the object of people's research and exploration. Every time the night falls, lights come on in the city, shining brightly. In the bustling crowd,
This off-putting video came on the scene from a company called Funhole. It was a new company with sets that looked like they were built out of Lego, but were not. And then, the alt-brick dam burst. And it's kind of hard to say why the dam burst. Is it ABS molding is more common now? Maybe. Is it because China is producing bricks more cheaply? Could be. I really can't tell. But the point is, these things are everywhere. And yet, you go on YouTube, there's not much coverage of it. I honestly didn't even know about these brands until...
Today we'll be looking at 5 different non-Lego building block brands. Basically reviewing 20 sets I gathered to generally show off what these brands are all about.
That is Jackson Sandler, aka JT Sandman 45. Jackson kind of burst into the Lego scene, not unlike a dam, about a year ago when he built all the Star Wars Lego mini kits in real life. You've probably seen that video. Since then, his channel really zeroes in on mid-aughts nostalgia. Think like Trick Bricks, but like a decade or two later. Jackson is unabashed about his alt-bricks use, which, have some shame. But I wanted to chat with him about all these brands, especially since he's built a lot of their sets. What is the appeal of an alt-brick?
The same appeal as a Lego set, which is like building something that you enjoy, whether that be a licensed thing or an original property. The difference between them and Lego is really pricing these days. I mean, Lego has become a high commodity item, and the prices are up there. It's still the easiest building block thing to get. Like, if you walk into a store, you're going to find Lego. You're not going to find Lumibricks. But if you're patient enough to order things online and you're interested in things that aren't necessarily licensed, like Star Wars or Harry Potter or Marvel, there's some really cool stuff out there that you can find for much cheaper than what, large marquee Lego sets are selling for these days.
Yeah, and as I looked through a lot of these companies, it seemed like they were very much targeting the adult audience.
I would say so, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely at the very least 12 plus, but closer to 18 plus. And I mean, so is Lego. They're releasing so many 18 plus sets because they know how much the collector market is willing to spend, which is a lot.
So is price the main appeal? Because I also was curious about like the quality of Lego, because I know people have said Lego quality has fallen off in the last couple of years.
As far as like stickers and like mold color inconsistencies, I will say that some quality has fallen off in Lego in recent years as they're trying to, stretch their margins a little bit. I would still call them the highest quality building block experience among all the building block companies that exist. There are companies that are catching up, but as far as instruction quality and part quality, I would still put Lego on top. Not that these other companies are far behind. And really, if you've built a number of Lego sets before, you're ready to dive into any of these alt bricks.
Well, that's something I was thinking about compared to like Megablocks or Tyco, especially like in the last decade or so. You could look at one of those bricks compared to a Lego and say, well, that's just a different brand. But a lot of these alt bricks, like, they look identical to Lego.
Yeah. There is a good reason for that. And that's because most of them are not manufacturing their own bricks. They're actually going through a company called Bluebrixx. It's a huge manufacturer, and they make everything. Color molds that Lego doesn't do. They make part molds that Lego doesn't do. Bluebrixx is like a big reason why a bunch of these companies exist now, really.
So a lot of these companies, the bricks are pretty much identical, if not exactly identical.
For the most part, yeah.
Can you is there like a quality difference between one of those bricks and a Lego brick?
I mean, if it was a blindfolded test and I had two 2x4 bricks in front of me, the only way I'd be able to tell there was a difference is because of like the Lego logo on top. If you could discern that blindfolded, because the other Go bricks are just smooth on top. Besides that, you would not be able to tell the difference at all.
Yeah, and they're fully compatible with Lego.
Absolutely, 100%. Same size. And it gets like a little hairy, legally speaking, especially when I think Lego's newer parts are more protected than the older parts. So that's why, you know, some of these other companies have more unique sloped pieces or things like that.
How's the quality of the build overall for these different companies?
About the same as the quality of the bricks, so like almost there.
Really? Okay.
I wouldn't call any of the builds Lego builds. You can tell they're different. They have certainly different and most of the time less hoops to jump through. The quality checks on Lego sets. I don't know this for a fact, but I know it's lengthy, and they do a lot of testing with kids and with adults and people who have built Lego before and have never built Lego before. And that's why their instructions are top of the line. You're not going to find a better set of instructions than Lego. Because really, they want their products to be approachable for anyone, you know, no matter what the age label says on the outside. If you buy a Lego set and you have no experience with it, you should be able to put the whole thing together. And these other brands, I would call them more similar to mock quality. Certainly better than mock quality, because most of the time a mock is like you design it online and you build it once and then you're like, yep, there it is.
As long as no one breathes on it, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So like they still have to do product testing and make sure the builds actually stay together. But you will run into instances where you might have to study a step a little extra long to figure out what's actually going on. I would say Mega, just because they've been around so long and they are a larger company, they're probably closer to Lego. But some of these other brands, just because their market isn't as big and these are for adults.
Yeah, and I think you see that with a lot. Like I think of Lumibricks as like their like Western sets or steampunk. Like they're so detailed and intricate, and it feels so different than something Lego would do.
For sure. And I would also say that the reason some of these are so different is because if Lego made some of the exact same sets with the same amount of detail in the same scale, they're charging easily double for the same product, and that's just not something that people would be interested in. Like I am 100% positive that they have a team running all these numbers before they pass them on to designers, to say like, if we make a set themed around whatever, what's the most amount of money we can charge for this item? And compared to some of these other companies, it's like, would someone really be interested in spending $300 on a Western building that has a bunch of prints and some minifigures and, you know, lights and whatever? That's just too much for Lego. I mean, if they want to charge that much, they're going to do a licensed property because they know they can get their money back on that.
Yeah, well, especially Bluebrixx and Pantasy have a bunch of, like, the licenses they have are very odd.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really feels like they're getting the scraps that Lego's not touching.
And they kind of are, honestly.
Pantasy has, like, Astro Boy.
Yep.
It's like, oh, yeah, cool. Metal Slug 3. Ooh.
Yeah, and like they'll have Astro Boy until a Lego Ideas submission gets 10,000 votes, and then you know, Lego will probably supersede their license. Like that's just how these things have been going.
Yeah, it's just a very odd selection, like Stargate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's another important thing to talk about is like some of these licensed brands are things that Lego would never make. They would never, ever, ever touch Stargate in a million years because it's violent and, you know, would probably compete with Lego Star Wars and whatever else.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that, you know, if you're looking for more actual 18 plus themed stuff, looking beyond Lego might be more for you.
A lot of these companies have minifigs, but they're not minifigs. Yes. And some of them look better than others.
Yeah, some of them do. Most of them are like, that's a thing you can easily put. So, I mean, maybe that's nostalgia talking, but the Lego minifigures, iconic and will forever be like a Lego brand thing. And that's because that's something they actually hold a trademark to, because it's sort of iconography for their company. I want to say there was I don't know too many specifics of it. There was a lawsuit at some point where they were able to defend the minifigure because that's sort of, they presented it as part of their brand, you know. And I agree with them. The minifigure is just as important as the Lego logo on a box. So the fact that other alternate brick companies can't copy the minifigure kind of sucks. Most of them don't include minifigures. The ones that do, like Lumibricks, are like, oof. Like, they're not good. They're passable, but it's like...
No one's buying this Lumibricks for the figures.
I hope not. I hope not. If you are, more power to you, I guess.
If you are, reach out to me. I'd like to talk.
Yeah, you are probably buying them for very cheap because I can't imagine anyone else who wants the minifigure specifically. But like, the argument I made in the Lumibricks video was like, they're passable. Sort of, if you put them in the set, they're fine. They're part of the display. If you care that much, these bricks are all compatible with Lego. Just, you know, get some Lego figures and throw them in there, and you'll be happy.
Honestly,
enough.
That's probably the move.
Yeah, I think so.
With your experience building these sets, have there been any like unique pieces that you're like, I wish Lego would come out with this?
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%. I think one of my absolute favorite part molds, and this is a Bluebrixx one, is these bracketed pieces, but there's not actually a face of a bracket on it. It's just the stud attached to a plate on the side. It doesn't sound possible, but it is entirely possible. So when you're building like walls and things, the stud can be flush against the wall. You can make much more. It's a super useful part, and I've got some mocks on the channel where I had to use some of those bricks, and they come in different sizes. I want to say like 1x1, 1x2, 1x4. Like, they're super useful bracket parts that I like even more than Lego's brackets, because you don't have to do the half stud math to,
you don't have to do the math.
to figure out what's going on. But beyond that, lots of different slope pieces. Some of the sets also had inverted tiles that were thinner, like I think a bracket surface thick. So no, there's a lot of unique parts even beyond other color molds that Lego doesn't do that are super useful.
Plus, if you build a mock and maybe you include a Bluebrixx, you don't have to tell anybody.
That's true. That's very, very true. Like, the thing about the Bluebrixx being so much cheaper is it's so tempting to just be like, oh, if I just spent all my money on Bluebrixx, then I could make a mock that's 2 times as big. And of course you totally can, but I think there is some thoughts that, like, especially if you show up to a Lego show or whatever with some mocks, I think those are the people that might care a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
if you hide it deeper in the block, they'll never know.
It is very tempting because it's a big money saver. And honestly, if you're just building mocks for the love of the game, like, do it. You know, there's no reason to shell out more money just because it's Lego.
Yeah.
Am I going to shell out money just because it's Lego? I guess so. I think people on YouTube would care if I built a whole mock out of Bluebrixx and said it was Lego in a thumbnail. So, like, I'll keep my internet presence clean, but just know I'm a fan of the alt-bricks, you know, on the down low.
And now alt-bricks are, like, everywhere. You know, like Amazon, for instance. Just all over.
Amazon, Walmart. It's pretty easy to find them online. It's also, some of these alternate bricks are sort of deceptive in their marketing, especially on places like Amazon, which isn't the coolest.
Yeah.
But the more dedicated sites for some of these alt brick brands are a bit more trustworthy, I would say.
Yeah. So where did you get the idea for the alt-bricks video?
Oh, yeah. That sort of just came from a reaction to Lego's online space in the community right now. I mean, there are a lot of people who complain about all the things I mentioned before, prices and stickers and printing inconsistencies and whatever else. And I'm a big fan of Jangbricks, classic Lego YouTuber, and his other channel, Jang's Other Bricks, where he reviews all of these other brands that I mentioned in that video and far more. He's really the guy who knows a lot about Lego's manufacturing and their marketing and why they do what they do. And I'm a big fan of his videos. So sort of watching that other channel, seeing how underexposed in a sense it was, because, you know, half the comments are like, this is great. And the other half are like, fake Lego, what is this crap? So I wanted to make the video to sort of say, hey, fake Lego does exist, but there are other companies who are doing a really great job manufacturing their own products that are unique and deserve some street cred. Like, there's some good stuff out there.
Yeah. Yeah, what has the response been to that video?
Pretty positive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still, you know, it's the internet. There's still some comments that are like, yeah, but, you know, this is fake crap. You know, I'll only ever buy Lego. And that's totally fine. Like, if you walk away from that video saying, this stuff is cool, but I just like Lego, like, that's totally fine. I mean, for my own sake, the alternate brick sets that I'm really buying are like display models that I really like. Mm-hmm. If I'm buying parts for a mock or whatever else, it's Lego. I'm a purist in that sense. My favorite comments on that video were just sort of the positive perception of like, hey, I didn't even know about a lot of these companies, so this is a really cool first exposure. And I won't be so close-minded, which is sort of what I was hoping the response would be.
Yeah. On that close-mindedness, I think as I was researching for this interview, I was on Lumibricks, and like I was like, these sets are pretty cool, but there's something in me that's like, that's not Lego, you can't do that.
Sure.
What would you say to people who are like right on the edge, like me?
Your concerns about fake Lego when it comes to copyright and trademark type of things, there are directions to go that avoid those sort of bad players in the space. You know, really study the companies that you're buying from, make sure they're legit. Most of the more legit ones have warehouses internationally. They're more real companies than the Temu type of products. If you are a Lego purist and you're like, I can't touch any of those other brands, at the very least, watch some Jang's Other Bricks videos. You know, scroll through the feed, say, whoa, like I'm a big Castle fan. What is this? You know, this set's $100. It has lights. You know, what's going on here? At the very least, see what else is up there. Don't discriminate just because it's not Lego. There's a lot of companies making some really cool stuff. And there's a lot of even parts and building techniques that like the same as watching a Lego review or building a Lego model. You can learn a lot for your own mock building purposes by just experiencing what's out there.
Up next, for Patreon supporters, Jackson and I explore one of his other passions, Guitar Heroes, and his covers of some very, very silly things. For everyone else, on to Part 2, the Alt-Bricks Autopsy, where we rank the alt-brick brands to find out, once and for all, which is the best. Part 2, the Alt-Bricks Autopsy. There's a Wikipedia page I go to a lot called Lego Clones. It clumps the knockoffs with the alt-bricks, but it's a massive list from ATC to Zuru Max and pretty much every letter in between, but no V. Of course, a lot of these don't exist anymore or of really bad quality. And if I didn't have a full-time job and produce this podcast and a million other things, perhaps then I would take a closer look at all these different brick companies, but I don't. Luckily, Jackson has. One thing I've noticed is I've been trying to do an episode on just Mega Bloks, and there's not really a lot of like Mega Bloks YouTubers out there. Like,
No, I don't think so.
why is Lego so kind of precious on the internet?
I would say it's just because of its dominant relevance. I mean, Mega Bloks has been around since the 70s or 80s. They've been around for a while, but I think Lego's superior quality and distribution and number of products and number of people that they appeal to is much, much larger, especially compared to Mega Bloks in recent years. Like their main pillars for the last 5 or so years were Halo, Pokemon, and then whatever other random IP they license with Mattel. They're the company that owns them. So the products sort of hit a dead end, I feel, at least at the current moment. I know they're still releasing more products and new product lines and sort of remaking their brand, sort of stripping Mega out of it and transitioning into Mattel Brick Shop. So maybe they'll earn back some relevance. I know in like the Lego car speed champion space, they are starting to. I hear a lot more discussion about the different scale of vehicles they're doing with sort of the Mattel Brick Shop Hot Wheels building sets. But they've also been licensing with Hot Wheels for a while. That's not something new. So really, I think it's just Lego has much more exposure in the market and more people trust them. Even like as far as general consumers go, they know what Lego is. If they turn around at the Target aisle and see Mega Bloks, that they're probably less likely to purchase, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just compare the announcement of Lego Pokemon to Mega Bloks Pokemon.
Yeah. No, like after Mega Bloks Pokemon was around for a couple of years, no one really gave a crap about them, honestly, which was disappointing because they made a lot of really great sets. And when the Mattel Brick Shop first came around, they introduced a couple of 18 plus sets that were super cool. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen the 18 plus, like, oversized Ash Ketchum with Pikachu. It's like $150 set, but it looks so dope. If Lego ever does anything like that, it won't be as cool because there won't be as many exclusive part molds or prints. So they were going for it. And they released a lot of cool products that I really liked. Like, I'm still a bigger fan of Mega Bloks Pokemon than I am of Lego Pokemon, but that's not really fair to say yet because the only thing we've had so far are some crazy expensive sets to see how much money they can earn to pay off that licensing MG.
Yeah. Well, I think of like when Lego announced the Pikachu set, they compared it. Everyone was comparing it to the Mega Bloks Pikachu set. And I was like, the Mega Bloks one does look better.
Yeah, I'm a bigger fan of that one, I'd say. Like I said, I can't choose Mega Bloks Pokemon over Lego Pokemon yet. They had years of development. And I will also say this, a lot of their sets I was not that interested in. Like, they released a lot of sets for kids, you know, with smaller Pokemon builds
those are tough.
Yeah, they really didn't look that good. My favorites were like the oversized models, the more 12 plus, 18 plus stuff. And I think the hanging pixel art, they released a line of 7 different pixel art Pokemon. Those are probably my favorite Mega Bloks releases. They look so sweet.
Well, Mega Bloks seemed a lot more comfortable to do custom molds than Lego.
I would say so. They also explored a lot of different colors.
Yeah.
Like even in those pixel art sets, a lot of unique colors that you're like, dang, if I wanted to make a Lego mock of like a different Pokemon evolution, I just don't have these colors that Mega Bloks is giving.
So where do you rank Mega Bloks on, I guess, this imaginary tier list of alt bricks?
It's really hard to place them where they're at right now in early 2026 because they kind of don't exist that much. Like, they've transitioned into the Mattel Brick Shop thing. They're selling some licensed Mattel stuff, but they're not producing more than 25 sets a year, maybe at the most. I feel like I would have to put them in like the average, the C category. They're making good stuff. Maybe the B category, because they're making good stuff and they're on store shelves, so you can actually find these products. But there's just not that many products, and the more interesting ones they're pursuing, they're sort of going for the random adult Lego icons market, where they're like, hey, let's make a Squid Game set, let's make a Beatles set. You're like, that's cool, I guess, but that's I don't think that's going to revitalize your company the way that you hope it will.
So that's not, the Beatles set isn't going to save Mega Bloks.
No, not at all. And that's like, it just seems like a property that, they made one set of, and then in a couple of years, Lego will steal the license back.
Yeah, well, that was something I noticed looking at a lot of these companies in general, is how much, I guess, crossover there is between Lego and the Altbrick sets. And I know you just did the video on licensing. How does that work? Like, how can, for example, Bluebrixx have a license that Lego also has?
Typically, the only time they're sharing licenses is when things are regionally locked. Part of the licensing agreements are where you're able to distribute your products. If Lego is licensing with a company, 90% of the time it's going to be worldwide licensing, because they have worldwide customers and they want to make the most amount of money from the licenses that they're picking up and paying MGs for and spending money to develop. Crossover between Lego and other companies as far as licensing goes doesn't overlap too much.
What I did find interesting, though, is a lot of these companies have collaborations with Peanuts.
Yeah.
Including Lego.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there.
Maybe they're just very generous with their licensing, or they're not giving exclusivity in the category.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, maybe those other products will start disappearing once this Lego Snoopy set actually is closer to releasing. But
they are pretty cool. Some of these other Snoopy sets. I think they look better than the Lego one.
Fair enough.
Personally,
I mean, we could also be in the sell-off period right now.
Yeah.
Like when your licensing term ends, you have an amount of time that you can sell off the products in inventory that you do have, so you're not trashing products and losing money on manufacturing you've already done. Yeah. So that might be what's happening right now, is they're in the sell-off period and they're getting rid of their inventory. So they might not actually hold the licensing rights anymore.
Yeah, that actually is a good point. A lot of these are sold out.
Okay, so maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
There's also timing exclusivity. Like Area X was producing SpongeBob sets, and I believe that was exclusively in China. But there were other distributors who were sending them overseas, as far as I'm aware.
Well, let's talk about Area X briefly, because you got at least you got the Krusty Krab set, right? Mm-hmm. Which is like, that set is insane.
Yeah, that set is very, very cool.
Yeah. What was the experience with that company?
Just a very cool display model, and I guess not only for display, because it has I forget what the name of it is, but it's like one of those bread containers you sit on your counter where you can pull the front out and the lid folds back. Yeah, just very, very clever engineering and very clearly their own design, which was much appreciated. Lots of cool molds in there, lots of prints and stickers. So I had a very positive experience with that Krusty Krab set, but a lot of their other products didn't super appeal to me. I mean, they had a bunch of other licensed SpongeBob stuff, but it sort of went more on the kiddie side, which is fine. It's SpongeBob. I can't complain about SpongeBob products being for kids. It just wasn't for me as much. And then some of their other licensed products, like Yu-Gi-Oh!, which, now that I'm thinking about it, is also another license that Lego took from them this year for that competition they're running. So yeah, they don't really exist anymore. But they made some cool stuff, and I still appreciate what they did. And I hope Lego SpongeBob is feeling the pressure to make more unique part molds and cool prints and lots of references to the show, because Area X was certainly not shy about doing any of that.
Yeah. So where did the Area X set land on the tier list?
That Krusty Krab set specifically, I would put it like an A tier. I'm a huge fan of that set. As a whole, Area X would have to be lower on the list. Honestly enough, they don't exist anymore. It's probably like a D tier.
Yeah, that doesn't bode super well.
Right. But I probably would have put them at like a C
Yeah.
last year when they were still around.
Yeah. Well, so one you were pretty negative about is it Kata? Kada?
Yeah, I think it can be other. I think I called it Kata.
Yeah.
But whatever. CADA.
What's going on with that one?
Kata produces a lot of Technic sets, as far as I'm aware, like a lot of vehicles and a lot of cars, which I am not super into. So the reason my opinions weren't super positive about them is because I bought a bunch of their brick-based sets.
Yeah.
They make really nice part molds and some interesting sets. Their licenses are a bit weird, as far as outside of the car stuff goes.
Yeah. Hey, I know you mentioned there were a lot of stickers with this brand.
Yeah, the sets that I had at the very least had a bunch of stickers. I also picked out some silly sets, like I bought a Shell gas station, and a lot of these alt-bricks companies do these like Japanese buildings. There's like a lot of them do. There's probably 4 or 5 different companies that are making like the Japanese corner store type of buildings.
What an odd market to go after.
I know. I guess they sell enough, though. I mean, the model looks cool from the exterior, so I get it.
Yeah, but you were unimpressed with the brick models.
Yeah, not super impressed. Maybe that's just the selection I got. I know there are a lot of people who are fans of Kata, especially vehicles and Technic-based, just not super my thing.
Yeah, and before we get to Lumibricks, you did mention these other two recently.
Yeah.
Which weren't in your video, but you've been looking into them. So Bluebrixx is really interesting.
After the video came out, I heard about more alternate brick brands, some that I mentioned in the video, some that I did not. Bluebrixx is interesting because they are, as far as I'm aware, sort of exclusively distributed in Germany. And I wasn't super familiar with the Lego brick building scene in Germany until after I got some comments. But they've had a lot of disputes with influencers and things over there. Lego is vilified in the US because of their pricing. In Germany, they're vilified because of sort of how they treat some of these other alternate brick companies and some of their influencers. So Bluebrixx has sort of become one of the more popular de facto brands over there because they offer a lot of the same things that, Lumibricks and Kata does, which is like larger sets for much cheaper than Lego is selling them, and also different licenses. So they're a very interesting company.
Yeah, and then Pantasy is another one which has really interesting sets.
Yeah, that was another brand that I was familiar with before the video, and I just looked through their product or their catalog of sets, and I was like, I just don't have much to say about some of these sets. They have some licensed ones and some original sets. Just not a ton that I was super duper interested in, or ones that I really thought I could talk about or add to, which is why I mentioned them in the video, but I didn't really go in depth.
And then kind of the king of the alt bricks is Lumibricks.
To me, at least, yeah.
Which, I mean, their sets are really impressive, even regardless of the light system.
They're pretty new to the scene. Like, they've only been making sets for 2 to 3 years, but they've got really great distribution. Like, you can buy all these sets on Amazon, a number of different countries. Their website is clean. The shit is always on sale. They've always got 10, 15%, sometimes 30, 40% on certain products. And those are already prices that are much cheaper than what Lego's offering. And these sets have more parts than Lego sets generally, especially for the prices you're paying. And they've got light kits included in every set, more prints. And like, they're not a perfect company. I still watch reviews, just like any Lego set. I watch reviews for these Lumibricks products before I bought any of them, because they have small problems here and there. Like, one of my favorite sets that they put out recently is like I think it's called the Alien Bounty something ship. Just a really cool spaceship for this new outer space line they're doing. And like, from reviews I saw, it's just really hard to get inside, and there is an elevator in there, but it is not very good. Like, it's super, super slow, super tedious, and doesn't work very well. So like, these are not perfect products, but especially as 18 plus display products, with lights, with prints. They make some really, really cool stuff.
Well, I mean, you get back to the not Lego level of quality in terms of just like the builds themselves. But they do look really cool.
They look really, really cool.
And they don't have any licenses, do they?
They do not. And that's honestly, I think in the video I put that in the pros column for me, because really that's a pro. I am a huge fan of Lego's original themes, as I've said many times on my channel, like especially the 2008 to 2012 range that we talked about earlier. So like seeing original themes that try to do something unique, try to tell some story, interconnect between multiple sets. Those are really the things that I like to see, not just from Lumibricks, but any brick building company. Like my favorite memories of Lego as a kid are those original themes with silly stories and different heroes and villains fighting over power crystals, or, Space Police 3, Pharaoh's Quest, like all these types of silly stories. And even though Lumibricks are selling 18 plus kind of larger display sets, they still touch on that. They're still producing Western sets and like fantasy taverns and space and cyberpunk and steampunk stuff. So just really a lot of interesting, unique categories that I'm just super interested in.
Are all their sets 18 plus?
Yeah, these are sets that you're meant to build and sort of keep together on display. Lego sets feel like, oh, I can tear this apart and build it into something new. Those ones sort of feel like, these are sort of display sets that you bought and should probably just keep on display.
Jokes aside, I'm tempted. I kept looking at the Lumibricks sets during this interview, and they are cheap, they are pretty, and there are a lot of pieces for the price. But I just can't pull the trigger. Like I said earlier, I get like an icky feeling thinking about mixing Lego and alt bricks. I'm big on consistency, which means I'm sticking with Lego. I'm recommitting myself to this billion-dollar company, and I will never get tempted again, I promise. Oh wait, they do cyberpunk sets? Oh, okay, I gotta stop before I get into trouble here. Thanks to Jackson for jumping on with me. Here is a behind-the-scenes secret. This is our second interview, but I accidentally deleted our first interview when I tried to install Call of Duty. Let me tell you, that was not a fun night. He is JT Sandman45 on YouTube with incredible videos. It's hard to beat his first video on mini kits, but his 2008 Lego Police video is great, and his mocks on Atlantis and Roku City are phenomenal in very different ways. Jackson was actually the first person I reached out to for this show, so I'm happy I got the chance to talk with him not just once, but twice. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. It is great to have support for this show, and you all really inspire me to keep pushing the show further and further. It has moved so far beyond covering old Lego themes into something really unique, which is cool. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, the link's in the show notes. It is $2 a month. You will get bonus content for every episode along with a digital Lego mock. For this one, I'm doing an anti-Lego PSA. Imagine someone spray painted a brick wall. You'll get it when you see it. It's on my socials. Please also share the show around. Following the podcast everywhere is a huge help. It's the same handle wherever you go, clutchpower.pod. And finally, thank you for listening to this episode. My name's Eric Crittenden. This has been Clutch Power. We will be back to Legos next week, I promise. Stay connected.